Anonymous. I don't think they want to be listed. That looks
Hello,
like an
everyone.
actual.
Oh, I'm sorry, Allison. I went live. Hello, everybody,
Ah!
and welcome to
Okay.
Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is maintaining frame number 45. Woke attitude devastates boys. Should we do anything about it? No. Where we're gonna be
It's.
looking at what was that?
I chose this title, but it might be a little uncharitable, maybe.
Yeah.
Except it just feels that way because it seems like people have been crying. Our boys are failing behind academically. They're not graduating high school. They are. They're only 51, or sorry, they're only 40% of the, and that number keeps going higher every year. Every couple months, people refine the problems with boys,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing happens, and nobody cares. It just,
Yeah.
it seems like it's just on a clock. Oh, we better mention that boys are failing in our society. Well, we've done our job. Go back to helping the girls.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I get
Okay.
it. Like, it's like it gets acknowledged and it gets paid lip service, but it doesn't appear as though anything like concrete is being done or started or anything. And I don't
Well,
know.
this is new. I will say this is new.
All right.
They are actually pointing to condemning boys and men's identity as a potential issue in their mental
Yeah.
health and their achievement.
You think?
Ooh, who would have thought? Yeah, you think? Like, here's the thing. They say that all kinds of things are driven by stigma against, for example, trans kids, like people not accepting their gender identity as a positive thing. Okay, so they say, oh, it drives suicide, and gay kids, right? It drives suicide. It
Right.
drives homelessness. It drives them dropping out of school and drug
Yeah.
abuse, and also being more likely to be victims of homelessness and trafficking and all of this other stuff. And we should not do it. And in fact, we should institute public measures to ameliorate the effects of families of gay and trans kids, stigmatizing them, and take that out of schools and do all of this shit. Meanwhile, we literally pay people to beat on men and boys' identity and
Yeah.
constantly constantly condemn it. I did a tweet today, and in the tweet I said, conservatives, trans and gay kids or tend to commit suicide more often. Have you tried being normal? And then under that I put feminists. Men commit suicide more often. Have you tried not being men? And it's exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
They stigmatize men and boys, which they wouldn't do to any other group. And as a society, we pay to do that.
Yep.
We pay to make men and boys feel like shit about their identity. And we think we're doing a good thing when we do it. But so I will give this article that. It's one of the few that's actually pointing the finger at the problem.
Yep.
And the problem is the condemnation of men and boys, which is condemnation that we would not accept if it was leveled against any other group. You think anybody's going to accept a psychologist? Let's say a psychologist operated and he got up and he said, the first principle I start with is that trans people's identity is the reason why they suicide and the reason why they end up in hospitals. And you really, honestly, they're doing it to themselves, because why can't they just mental health more like normal people? I mean, he would be fired.
Yep.
And yet APA, the association, the American Psychological Association, not only allows psychologists to operate under the principles that men's identity apparently causes their mental health issues, or is instrumental in them getting worse, which is basically the same thing. It allows them to operate, not only but it issues that as a standard. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, this article does point that out. Sorry.
Yeah, yes,
Go
sir.
ahead, Brian.
It do.
This is another one of those things that make me angry, by the way.
Yeah, I can
You
sense
may have
that.
noticed.
So, before
This
we
is why
jump
I
in,
like,
yeah,
honestly, this is why I like when we go and we do things like Velma,
yeah,
because Velma is a pain in the ass, and
sure,
it's ridiculous, it's terrible writing, but it's also hilarious. Like, it's so woke and it's so SJW that
it
it's
is.
freaking
It's
hilarious.
well, you can enjoy the cringe for what it is without it, like, you know, it doesn't necessarily make you angry. Like, it didn't make me angry. I was just like, well, this is garbage, and then I just left it at that. That's kind of my attitude towards most of that kind of thing. But I think that this is, it's like it's one of those things that is closer to the mark, which makes it more frustrating. It's like the difference between throwing a dart and it gets close to the bullseye but not quite, like it's sort of in the middle somewhere, and throwing a dart and it hits some guy in the eye. Like, it was so bad that you it doesn't even count. Like, so yeah, I get what you're saying, and and Velma's good for blowing off, like stuff like that is good for blowing off steam. Speaking of which, I mean, I know that that's not what we're going to be talking about today, but I just want to let you know that I have something we can respond to next time, which is the rise of fifth wave feminism. There is a fifth wave coming, and from what I've seen,
sequel nobody goddamn needed.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Like,
okay, what is it now?
What?
What is fifth wave feminism?
Well, I mean, I don't want to give too much away because I got to do a little bit more research, but essentially what fifth wave is what Posey Parker and these like reactionary, gender feminists, like they're basically, it's like TERFs rebranding themselves, basically. Like, we're the feminism that embraces femininity and maternity and having children, and essentially it's like the inevitable pushback on the intersectionality thing, but it's rebranding. That's basically what the waves are. It's feminist rebranding, and this is the newest thing. It's very new, so I don't know a whole lot about it. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, fifth wave is basically
new feminism
being a
dropping,
woman.
Everyone.
What?
It's a new feminism dropping, everyone.
Yes, a new feminism just dropped, y'all. So new wave dropped. But anyway, so that will be, it is like, they call it reactionary, but now they're calling it fifth wave. So anyway, so before we get into the actual article, I think, Allison, do you want to say a few things, like what people want to support us and stuff like that? I don't know if the fundraiser's up, whatever.
No, the fundraiser's not up yet. We've just been dealing with dental issues here, and also you've been dealing with, if you guys noticed, we weren't doing a show for a while. It's because Brian's computer went kaput.
I had this hard disk drive. It was kind of I guess it was kind of a ghetto Chinese knockoff called Kronos, and it just ate its own asshole, and my computer suffered for it, so I got a new one put in. It cost me a pretty penny, but I think everything is up now, but I lost like everything. So I'm looking into, there's a service though that supposedly boasts being able to get your data off of even a broken hard drive. So I might look into it if it's not too expensive.
Okay, so this one is that one. Well, I mean, that one did last a few years. Didn't it? Like
I've had it for, since 2019. So
yeah,
like 4 years. It's not bad. But I never knew that solid state drives could just implode like that. So
yeah, that is odd. A solid state drive, you say? Because I was thinking, like, if it was not a solid state, 5 years, you might actually be pushing your luck. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we've been dealing with Brian's hard drive shenanigans, and then just health issues on my side, and not my own, just my husband's. which, you know, if you're married, your health issues sort of become merged.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
I know Lindsay knows about that.
Yeah. But so so that's what we've been dealing with. That's why we've been a little bit scarce lately. But we have done our usual 2 shows. So anyway, if you would like to help out, currently the fundraiser is not up, but it will be up at feedthebadger.com/support. Unless I did put it up. I don't think I did. But anyway, so go there to help us with monthly fundraiser. Or if you would like, and not actually, or if you would like to send a message anytime during the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's just the tip, which, you know, without the slur and the lisp. And if you put
Just
something
the
through
schlip.
that, we will, the slip.
The schlip.
flip.
Just a schlip.
The schlip. Just the schlip.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted.
Okay. All right. Okay. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And we get the full benefit of whatever you put through, except for the usual fees, which we can't help. And, you know, if you put it through YouTube, they usually take they take about 50% at this point. And any other place, Rumble's not too bad, but it's a little more harder for us to keep track of. So anyway, feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and you get the benefit of being able to send us a message that we won't have to, that YouTube censorship won't step all over, and YouTube censorship can be a strange creature, a strange and fickle animal.
Yeah.
So feedthebadger.com/justthetip, as long as it's not too graphic or full of words that'll get us banned, you know, we'll say it. Okay, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. All right,
All right.
do have.
So I just want to say I do have one super chow I'd like to read now because it was so great. We got it's an anonymous person, so they didn't give us a name, and they donated $300 and said keep up the fight. So I just want to say thank you, anonymous person, with that fat donation. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say about that. So now we will get into today's article or a piece, I guess we're going to be looking at. This is from the Telegraph, and the headline is, "Boys have been left devastated by the woke attitude to masculinity. Perhaps the fact that some young men are looking up to Andrew Tate will force us to sit up and take action." Well, whatever. I don't want to get into that because...
Yeah, because the suicide didn't.
Yeah, first of all, this isn't new.
The fentanyl epidemics didn't.
Yeah.
You know, the epidemics of boys not graduating high school didn't. You know, all of that. But now Andrew Tate.
Yeah. It's kind of it's
Andrew Tate.
What?
I just said Andrew Tate. That's what's going to get everybody off their ass. And yes, Andrew Tate does exploit men and boys himself through his activities. However, that is not the point here. The point is that nobody cared about men and boys until somebody offensive and very, very high profile, presumably, they started looking up to him. You know, I have my own explanation for why.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't think, while yes, Andrew Tate is exploitative. I think that, you know, wake me up when young men start looking up to, you know, the neo Genghis Khan.
Yeah. Because
that may very well be coming, considering that our society has decided it doesn't want them. You know, they're our enemy. Well, you know, they may turn around and decide that we're their enemy, and then the fun starts.
Well, yeah, you get what you get.
And get what you get. All right, let's keep going.
Anyway. All right, so this is by Nick Fletcher. And let's go ahead and take a look at the article. So, society is in danger of demonizing boys and young men. No. It's been demonizing boys and young men for a long, long time. This is not a new thing. This is not something that's on the cusp of happening. This has been going on for at least 100 years. And I don't know. Like, I think that saying in danger of demonizing, that it just seems a little preemptive.
Yeah, it's like
or late. You're late
society
to the
is in
party.
danger of oppressing women.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
exactly.
well, I guess if it's just in danger, we don't have to, of potentially doing something, we don't have to care too much, do we?
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, they are lambasted in schools by toxic masculinity crusaders and denigrated in popular culture. This environment is having a crushing impact. According to the health department, suicide is the biggest cause of death in men under the age of 50, and around 3/4 of deaths from suicides each year are men. Research from Future Dads last year showed that around a third of young men felt left behind by society. Okay. You want to say anything into that? I mean, I don't.
A third? Wow.
That's according to some research. I'm sure it could
Yeah,
be
and also
even.
left behind by society,
Yeah,
actively pushed out seems to be more appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think it's that they're feeling a certain way. I think that they're
Oh my
literally
God,
being
society's...
like discriminated against and pushed out.
Yeah.
I saw
Yes,
this.
and oh my God, society's sprinted so far ahead.
Yeah.
However, will we keep up on these useless legs? That's not what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So I just want to say, like, as an example, this is how bad it's gotten in education. I saw this video. Maybe okay, take it with a grain of salt because it is anecdotal. But I saw this video of this guy who had like this really high GPA, like it was over 5 points. He had just like a great record. Like according to his grade point average and so on, he should have been able to get into any big college, and he applied at all the Ivy League colleges, and they all turned him down. And then a woman in a different video applied for a bunch of colleges, was more average in her GPA stuff, and she got accepted into every single Ivy League college. And it's because he's a man. I mean, they don't say it, but we already know that women are they're disproportionately preferenced for college and for university and so on, while men, especially white men, are disadvantaged. And this guy was white too. But I think it's more important that he was a man. And they're being pushed out. They're being put in, like in I guess you could say the second place position or third place position if you include all the other genders. And that's just the reality. And they don't do anything to deserve it or anything. What was that?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah.
And this is done openly.
Oh yeah.
There's no hiding it. People will these companies will openly say we're just preferentially hiring minorities and women, and they're just open with it. But then if you point it out, you're not really, like, you'll get pushback against pointing it out. You're like, this is what's happening. It's interesting because it's sort of the same thing that's happened with CBC. I don't know if you've noticed that in just a sec.
Yeah. What's going on? Do you need to replace the battery in your fire detector?
No.
Smoke detector?
No, I'm good. I'm just dealing with something. Okay, so you look at what was the...
What was it? What's the question?
Okay, sorry. I just lost my train of thought. I'm really sorry.
Well, I was talking about what we were talking about, education and how women and minorities are given preference, but it's more than that. It's especially women though. Like, so the fact that they're women is a much more of a contributing factor than them being of minority groups. And this is why, like in the video I was talking about, the woman who got was basically qualified for everything despite her her grade point average, which was good, but it wasn't like 5.6 or whatever the other guy had. It was something like 4.0 or something like that.
Well, usually it's not a 4, so she probably had a 4.0 and she had like a 3, or unless it's changed recently.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he was at a 5. I don't know, like, even how that works, but But yeah, she was at like I want to say it was like 4 or maybe just under. But the point is, not a slouch, but it's weird that she got into every single Ivy League school, right? Yale, Harvard, Brown, like all of the big law schools and whatnot. But it's not I guess the thing is, it's not that surprising because they're not doing any of this based on merit. They're just doing this based on their freaking DEI score, and that's what I think it is anyway. And it's not going to serve, like, obviously the men who don't get in aren't being served by this, but the women won't be served by this either. So it doesn't really work out for anyone. But the point is, this kind of discrimination, this kind of preferential treatment, it's very old, like but way before woke was a word. So saying, oh, the woke are attacking masculinity, that's
that's
I mean, duh.
A little too late. A little too little too late. It's been a while. And really, it doesn't need to be woke or postmodernists or intersectionality. It's just feminists.
Yeah, it is. It is. At the end of the day, it's all feminism.
With that.
Yeah.
It is all feminist.
It is.
Feminism just like a corpophage. It eats everything that it could possibly get any victimhood points out of. Civil rights movement, Marxism, like the classes. That's basically what happened, is that, you have this class struggle in the labor movements, and feminism's like, ooh, well, be a terrible shame if someone smashed that and stole everything worthwhile about it. Oh, looks like we did. And then the civil rights movement, and then
the gay rights thing.
The gay rights and the trans rights. And the trans rights are more difficult because it's like a little bit of an existential crisis for women, I guess.
It's very tricky.
It's very tricky.
Like, they don't know, like, how do you like, is it a woman? Like, that's
how do you
that's why there's a fifth wave coming, because they don't, I'm telling you, it has to do with the trans thing, because they don't know how to deal with it. So they're like, okay, everybody, we're women again, and women is a gender now, so we're bringing it back.
No, so we can preserve our non-privileges, our oppression at the hands of men. Really,
we have to rescue our oppression from men who are oppressing.
We got to wrest our oppression from men.
Yeah,
the men are threatening our oppression. Oh, anyway, I remember what I was going to say. The fact is, you can't openly admit all of this, that this is happening. That men are being discriminated against in jobs. They're being discriminated against in promotion, openly. People are openly, like, companies are openly discriminating against men. They're being discriminated against in schools. And you can't say that, even though it's open, even though people will say, feminists will say, this is exactly what we want to do. But you can't say, well, that's what you're doing. They'll say, the future is female. Women should be occupying these positions, and they should get favoritism. And you say, well, you're giving favoritism. You can't do that. And it's funny because it's the same thing that's sort of happening with the CBC. I don't know if you've been watching the Elon Twitter files. I do.
I have not. I know that there's a lot going on. I know that Elon Musk, like 80% of their employees left or were fired. That's all I know. Oh, and
it still operates.
He got into an argument with the CBC about them being government funded, which I thought everybody knew.
Yeah, it's like no, they got into a huge argument over it because he's listing them as government funded.
Oh yeah,
which is 100% true.
Yeah, like
because they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, like most of their funding, and the BBC gets funding from a tax collected by the government. They are government funded. If you want public funded, means that you canvass the public for funds. We're public funded because we don't get anything from what. Yeah.
Okay, we are, like, Honey Badger Radio is funded by the public, but the difference is we don't point a gun at people to make them pay us. The government does.
I'm telling you, the difference is government funded versus public funded is what I'm getting at.
Oh, I see.
Public funded is funded by the public, so people listen to a fundraising drive and say, donate. Hey, that sounds like that sounds like a good initiative. I think I'll support it. Government funded is when the government goes into your finances, takes a chunk, and then decides for itself.
Yeah.
where that money should go. And as I had a long, extended discussion with a feminist recently who informed me that the fact that women are the majority of voters in the US does not mean they're in any way responsible for the political decisions made by the US government, because despite voting, they're completely disenfranchised. Voting apparently is meaningless. So, if the government decides to give your money to someone and you have a vote, that's meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the government's decision, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would agree with, but not along those lines. So anyway,
what
the
was
CBC,
the thing about the Elon Musk thing? Were you going to say something?
Yeah,
about...
I'm getting to it. The Elon Musk
go
problem.
ahead.
So, okay, all right. So he basically said government funded. So he put a line on there to declare the fact that they're government funded. They threw a hissy fit and said, we're only 70% government funded. And so he changed it to 70% government funded. And then they threw another hissy fit and they said, we're less than 70%. So he changed it to 69% government funded.
Yeah.
And then they declared and
nice.
said, we are
69%? Nice.
We are pausing our activity on Twitter. They aren't leaving Twitter. They're just pausing that activity on Twitter, which, I guess means that they're going to extort their participation to get their, so that they don't have to be shown to be government funded, even though that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just someone is saying, this is happening. This is what you're doing. Just like we say to feminists, you are openly advocating for discrimination against men, and you are getting it, and it's now there, and it's there. And they'll say, oh, you can't say that. That's a conspiracy.
Yep.
But we are advocating for discriminating against men, but it's a conspiracy to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we don't like the effects of being called out. That's what the CBC is doing. We don't like the effects of being called out. Therefore, it's a conspiracy.
Yep. All right.
So I'm done.
No, it's okay. Let's go back to the article, but first I have another super chow. Michael Keller gives us $5 and says, Brian, connect your old hard drive to the new computer. Get yourself the open source program PhotoRec. It's available for Windows, runs best on Linux. And let it work the old hard drive. Maybe you can recover your data this way. Maybe you'll have to search the results and rename the files. So the repair guys that I dropped this off with, they told me they tried that. And that they weren't able to. So they actually literally did this on Linux. And I guess it didn't work, but there's like these other guys that like work with the military and shit that are supposed to be like the best. And so that's what I'm going to look at. But if it might be expensive. If it's too much, then just forget it. Like I lost some artwork, a lot of artwork actually. But that's the only thing that I can think of that I lost that I can't recover. So, all right. But anyway, I'll look into it. Let's go back to the article. Thank you, Michael Keller, for the donation. Really appreciate it. Okay. They are lambasted in schools by toxic masculinity crusaders and denigrated in popular culture. Did I read that? Yeah, I already read that paragraph. Commentary routinely seems to present boys as inherently bad. The impression is given that parents cannot be trusted to raise them as good citizens, leading to the worrying conclusion that outside organizations should do the job for them. But some organizations, which come into schools and talk to boys, have developed a habit of telling them to move away from toxic masculinity. That, in my view, feeds into a sense of uneasiness.
Oh, it's worse.
Yeah.
Like, it's open season on boys. Any fucking charlatan can roll in, from the depths of the pedophile.
Oh man, the
layer.
The grift is strong in education.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the toxic masculinity conversation.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like one of those things that is like it's so resistant to logic because it doesn't operate under logic. That most people will just be like, well, I guess he must know what he's talking about. He does have a PhD at the end of his name.
Or she.
I'm
actually thinking of Kate.
Kate?
Yeah. Kate.
I don't know.
The horror show with the
one
man
that was on the incel forums.
Yes, that one who was on the
Laura
incel
Bates?
forums. Bates, yes.
Laura Bates, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember her as having the same name as, Norman Bates. Laura Bates. Sorry, not Kate Bates. Laura Bates.
Laura Bates.
Yes, she is definitely should not be around minors.
No,
I'll put
no,
it that
no.
way.
No.
Like, all of her work is obviously her sexualizing boys, and yet she just has a free line into she just it's just like it's like the UK school system just delivers up boys to her for
Yep.
her to engage in her sort
Fantasies.
of disgusting fantasies with. I'm making it is pretty salacious. Because these kids she's exposing them to sexual materials and
Yeah.
expectations of their sexuality that she's pushing on them. And not only that, but she openly says that she has posed as an underage boy in forums in order to have intimate conversations with them. Now, just all of that, imagine it was a man doing that to middle school girls. How quickly would we come down on that like a bag of hammers? Right? But we don't, because Laura Bates is a feminist, a female feminist in the UK. And it's just open season on boys. They come in with all of this unscientific crap,
Yep.
and they ladle it on them, and nobody cares.
Yep.
Because they're just boys, right?
Yep.
Just boys. Who gives a crap? I mean, we have beat them a bit, though. That improves boys, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Subject them to sexualize. That improves boys. Boys gotta learn that their bodies are available to women whenever women want. And they gotta learn that brutality toughens them up. And they gotta learn that even though their mom may be beating them at home, they have to take responsibility for violence against women and girls.
Yeah.
They gotta learn all that. They gotta learn their place. And we are happy to provide people who will teach them their place through so unbelievably emotionally, sexually, and physically. Well, I guess the beating is no longer acceptable anymore. That was like the least worst of it, though. Physically, mentally, and sexually exploitative practices, and just put it on boys. Nobody gives a fuck, and then they wonder why boys drop out.
Yeah.
It
probably serves.
infuriating.
It probably would serve them better if they did. Honestly, I think that if they are
not high school. If they can get high school,
yeah, I mean,
remotely.
like if you can be self-taught or homeschooled, you should do it. But yeah, I mean, right now the way things are, it just doesn't serve boys at all. And so you probably traumatize your kid if you send him to public school. Your son. So something to think about, look into.
Yeah.
Be involved. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. You send your kid to school to be told that he is a problem.
Yeah.
In society.
Yeah, for 6 hours a day. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a mess. Okay, let's see. Okay. There urgently needs to be more public and parental scrutiny of this type of content. We need to know exactly what is being said to boys in educational settings. I remain hopeful that the government's review on relationship, health, and sex education will lead to firmer guidance on bringing external groups into schools, but it may also need to reinstate a right for parents to first view and then withdraw their children from workshops that they deem harmful and oppressive to their children.
Is it far enough, though?
No.
Are you guys going to look at all of this feminist crap? Like all of it?
Yeah.
Are you going to get rid of everything that's unscientific?
Yeah, are you going to be able to...
I can tell you.
Go ahead.
I can tell you, feminism has never been scientific. They are making bald-faced assertions that have no frickin' support. Bald-faced assertions about men's goals, men's desires, men's effects, and some kind of the fact that men apparently share some kind of telepathy but cannot cooperate in any capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just every bit of it. The only underlying logic is that men are bad and responsible for bad, and women are their victims. That's the only underlying logic that I've seen to it.
Yep.
Because, like I said, men are simultaneously fragile, incapable of cooperation. They fall apart in the drop of a hat. But they're also, you know, vastly coordinated in a network designed to oppress women, using things like rape and domestic violence. It's like, this stuff is at its core unscientific and absolutely toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody looks at that and says it's all got to go. All of it. Like, feminists, they don't even understand it when I said, well, what about the null hypothesis? Have you ever tested the possibility that feminism isn't correct? And I say that because every time I read feminist studies, they fail to predict things. They will make a prediction based on feminist theory, and it fails over and over. Feminist theory, sorry. A theory is a hypothesis that has proven its predictive value.
And this is just conjecture.
It's just conjecture.
Yeah.
It's not even a hypothesis. It's just conjecture.
Yeah.
And this you are allowing these women to go in and to pour venom into your boys based on a conjecture that has no scientific validity.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fucked. And you know what? You're not going far enough at this point.
Yep.
But, maybe this is good.
Well,
they're starting to take note.
Yeah, I mean, I think they see that there's a problem. I think the main challenge is going to be figuring out that the problem runs a lot deeper than you think. It's not just, these sort of like narratives around things like toxic masculinity and rape culture. It's like the way that the style in which teachers work with boys. Like from the get-go, right? The fact that we medicate boys when they don't behave in the way that we want, which is basically like girls. The fact that these kind of like misandrous attitudes and theories and ideas, they're embedded in the DNA of education and the media and everything. It's like you would have to spend all of your time calling it out. And you still wouldn't solve it because you're not getting to the root of the problem. You're just like, oh, this weed over here, I don't like this weed, but these other dandelions, they're fine. No, there's a root problem, and that is
You're just going to explode again.
Huh?
You've dealt with dandelions, right? If you don't cut the heads off, if you're just like, this is the dandelion that needs to go.
Yeah.
Well, they just explode.
And then there's more dandelions.
And then your lawn is entirely dandelions again.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta get rid of all of them.
You gotta get rid of all of them. And, that's exactly what it is. So the issue is that I could see, I don't want to put words in this guy's mouth because maybe it's not true. But I know that a lot of people who are non-feminist, anti-feminist, whatever, even a lot of MRAs that I've spoken to, will essentially try to give they'll do everything in their power to give feminism some kind of pass as like the root cause, right? Even if they say, well, I know feminists that don't hit men, that doesn't matter. They believe in this thing, and that thing comes with this baggage, right? So like if you really aren't that kind of person, then why the fuck are you calling yourself this? And that's what you should be asking. Oh, because I care about women. That's the problem. You care too much about women, and you're not looking at men because you're thinking, well, how are the women affected by this? You know what? So, and this isn't something that's unique to feminists at all. It's like we're all guilty, or at least most people are guilty of that.
But I have to honestly say that once I really dug into the financial underpinning of feminism, I had a real black pill when I realized they don't care about women either.
No, they don't.
Because the truth is, if you care about women, you cannot separate women from men.
No.
You have to look at both sides of the problem.
Yeah.
If you want to reduce domestic violence, you want to create fewer female victims, you have to look at the data for male victims.
Yeah.
And work on it with all of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's not what you're pursuing.
No, they don't. No, and you're right. They don't care about women. Women are a tool.
Not that that should be like like honestly, men deserve to be cared about because they're men.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't care about men or women more than men.
No.
We should strive for equality of concern, even if we are like, wow, but biology, but sociology. Yeah, well, you know, it's also biology for women to die in childbirth. But we fix that thing.
Yeah.
We shouldn't see our biology as destiny.
Yep.
I prefer not to.
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe we will never get equal compassion for men, but it's something we should strive for. It should be seen as contemptible to ignore the issues of men. It should be seen as contemptible to put women over men, not beside them.
Yep.
It should be seen as contemptible to ignore the victimhood that men face.
Yep.
You know, that's contemptible because it helps no one. This is what have been hit in the face with over and over and over again. If you do not look at the situation for male victims in almost every single form of what feminists say is a problem that women face, well, first of all, men also face it. If you refuse to look at the data facing men, if you refuse to care about the men of a particular group, you are not a progressive and you're not making progress towards anything. You are not solving a problem. You are just feeding it and feeding off of it.
Yeah. Well, they're the ultimate maintainers of the status quo. And I just rebellion.
It just baffled my mind because I realized I dug into the financials of these feminist organizations, and I realized that, you know, and I've probably said this before, like one of them, and these are just cookie cutters. Like there's so many of these organizations, they do fucking nothing, and it's just one of them. All they do, pamphlet, mailing list, referrals. You know, like and referrals in a situation where I can't see them doing more than like a couple referrals a year, and an hour and a half seminar that you have to pay for once a month. And I'm looking at this, and this is worth $650,000 a year in terms of salary. I'm like looking at this. This realistically, that's $650,000 a year for probably 10 hours a month. These people do not give a flying fuck about the women they serve. It's about the money. It's about getting easy money. And
about the power.
And then I looked, and power and control. And I'm looking at this and I'm like,
the moral authority.
Although male activists for men's issues, we may not have the money, we may not have the clout or the recognition, but what we have is we actually give a fuck about men. Women's advocates do not give a fuck about women, and it's obvious.
And you know, by extension, we also care about women, because again, you can't have one without the other.
I didn't go into this thinking, oh yeah, I just don't give a fuck about those women. I mean, sometimes I feel that way, I'll be honest. When I see yet another TikTok trend that's just like, Allison needs to see more of the most awful, psychotic bullshit coming from women and see it trend so that, you know, the fact that this thing is getting thousands of likes from other women makes it obvious that this is a general and acceptable attitude. And I'm like, but aside from that, I didn't go into this being like, yeah, you know, I hate those women. I just care about men. I went to it because nobody cares about men. Yeah. Nobody. So it's like, okay, it seems to be the female side is covered. So maybe some people we should start looking at the male side. Yeah. And then I find out after 20 years that nobody gives a fuck about the women either. They just use them as a cash cow. Okay, anyway, that was a long aside.
Did you see the you mentioned TikTok. I don't go to TikTok, but did you see the parking lot Karen video where the woman, well, I don't want to call her a Karen, I don't like that word, but there was the woman who said that some strange man approached her in the parking lot and she yelled at him and she was like shaking because she was so afraid. Did you see that video? We might have to look at it sometime. Maybe I don't know. It's interesting. I'll say that. I'm sure that some people in the chat have seen it because it was viral. But okay. Anyway, let us continue. So, so they talked about relationships, health, and sex education in the government. So I will say that I don't think that the government should be involved or schools in any way with those things. I mean, I think that parents should be well equipped, friends of family, the community, etc., not the state. But that's just me. All right, anyway, we are also failing to address boys' underachievement. Academia is not for everyone, but it should trouble us that in 2020 to 2021, only 48% of boys, compared with 55% of girls, attained a grade 5 or above in both English and maths. GCSE. So this is, I don't know what grade 5 is. This is a British publication. That sounds like an A. I don't know. I have no idea. Of course, we should celebrate that girls are performing well, but why does this gap exist? And what is being done to bridge it? And also, I want to add, what would be the consequences of that? Because there are going to be some consequences in the pair bonding department. Because if men are not able to, get as high grades because the education system is not helping them because it doesn't have their interests in mind, and they're going to get a, maybe a lower paying job like afterwards, or at least one that is less a lower paying job than they were shooting for initially, then they're going to have a harder time finding a partner, because the truth is that men don't look for women for their success, but women do look for men for their success. So it's just adding to, that issue of women looking for the top, 5%, top 1% of men, and almost none of them, fit the bill, partly because of their incredibly high standards, but also because men are underachieving. And we're going to see that, in the coming years. I mean, it's already happening now, but I think it's going to be even worse once this new generation of kids, gets out of school. So there are definitely going to be problems. It's not just, the education gap as though men and women are just the same in terms of what they think about that. I think it's going to really have a big impact on men. I don't know if you want to say anything else before I move on, but
I think we should continue.
All right. But why does this gap exist, and what is being done to bridge it? The number of male secondary school teachers in England has fallen to record lows. Thousands of boys are excluded from mainstream education. Why is this happening? Okay, so male secondary school teachers. I could tell you why. Because women run education, and those women tend to be feminist women. Or at the very least, they have a fear of men. And so it's a lot harder for them to get jobs, in education.
And fear of false accusations.
Yeah, men, that's true. Men are afraid to do it because they don't want to be falsely accused. But women generally don't want men because they find them to be a threat. Especially in like larger cities. Because I noticed that when I was doing substitute teaching here, I was the only man that was teaching classes. Like, it was all women. But this is a lot more of a conservative, town. So the women were like, oh my God, it's so good to have a man around, right? Like that. And I was like, I've never heard this before. So just weird, because, I did some subbing in Chicago, and it wasn't like that at all. But anyway, so yeah, there's a number of reasons for that. And again, my favorite teacher when I was in school, I don't know if you have a favorite teacher, but my favorite teacher was a man. His name was Mr. Trickle. And we went on field trips. He was very engaged, and he kept us interested in the learning, but especially the boys, which I believe the classroom was mostly boys because it was like a gifted program. Not that I'm trying to dunk on women here. I was just saying it just so happened, it was mostly boys and guys from all over the world too. And he just knew what boys needed. Like, he got us excited to learn, and it was like 6th grade and 8th grade. So his name was Mr. Trickle, like water that trickles. I know it's a weird name, but all right. But anyway, so yeah, if you guys had a teacher that you liked, let us know in the comments. So anyway, thousands of boys are excluded from mainstream education. As a member of the Education Select Committee, I have scoured the national political and educational landscape for answers and recommendations on these issues, but I've been dismayed to see very little. It is as if people are frightened of the topic. Does anyone believe this would be the case where the gender is reversed? No, obviously not. Why don't we see more campaigns promoting education careers for boys? Why do we have a This Girl Can initiative to get girls involved in sports, but no This Boy Can to get boys reading? You want me to keep going? Allison?
Yeah, there's not much to that. I mean, it's pretty lightweight.
Yeah.
But let's keep going.
We can no longer continue to claim ignorance of the male malaise gripping the country. By the way, he's talking about the UK, so I don't know if that's like worse than the US or better, but I guess it's bad everywhere. Perhaps the fact that some young men are looking up to Andrew Tate will force us to sit up and take action. We agree that they deserve better role models. Do you, though? I mean, it sounds like you guys don't think they should have any role model, because if they, like, latch on to anyone, all of a sudden that person is bad. Remember when it was Jordan Peterson? Do you think that Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate are basically the same?
Well, some of them seem to. I have no understanding how they make that estimation. I still am baffled what it is that's so horrifying about Jordan Peterson, aside from the fact that he emphasizes individual agency, and apparently we're supposed to all be, I don't know, in a matrix with an umbilical cord sucking into the
that
government
sounds like
somehow.
Andrew Tate believes that, I think, that we're in the matrix.
Really?
But well, he talks about the matrix, yeah. But
okay, well,
go ahead.
But my point is that they don't even make the distinction, and I don't understand it. Like, yeah, and how much shit did Jordan Peterson get in for?
Yeah.
And now, you got an Andrew Tate. I mean, honestly, I think that they seem, Andrew Tates seem to be recycled and pop out like every few years. So there's a new one.
Yeah.
I mean, this is his turn on the carousel.
It is.
I mean, probably there'll be another one in 2024. It usually is about the life cycle, and or 2025 if we still have a society, which seems to be a more critical issue. But whatever. Jordan, like, again, they don't seem to see a difference between Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. So anyone, you're right, Brian, because we don't even need to talk about Andrew Tate. We can talk about Jordan Peterson. He was condemned.
Yeah.
And I still don't know what the hell, and he was called out for things he said about men.
Yeah.
But I still have no clue what makes him so offensive, aside from the fact, I do. Aside from the fact that he does not allow people to slump into their shit. Like, if a woman says something stupid, he calls her to the mat.
Yep.
I think that's probably what it is.
Partly,
but he's not.
I mean, especially the interview with what's her name? So you're saying
Kathy Young?
Kathy Young?
Mm-mm.
Is that her name?
Not Kathy Young. No. Newman.
Nah, Kathy Newman. Yeah.
Is sort of a feminist apostate.
But I think there is a common denominator, and it's not that Peterson was able to like own feminists on
debates
about the wage gap or something stupid like that.
No, it's because he advocated for boys.
It's because exactly. It's because he advocated for boys, and it's because he pointed out that boys and men have it really hard, and that's unacceptable because men can't be at one time on one point struggling and on another point be the oppressor. That's why, by the way, I think the toxic masculinity thing came up. I mean, it's not a new thing, but it sort of resurfaced, and I think it's because they get to say, well, okay, so yeah, men do suffer and suicide is high and all these other problems, but it's men's fault. And so this is just them recalibrating their bullshit.
It's no other way to reconcile that with an assumption about reality that they live in. And it's not just feminists who live in it. It's like almost everybody now. Everybody has an assumption about reality that they refuse to challenge. And even people who you'll say, but look at these issues that men face. They'll agree, and then it'll just slide out of their brain.
Yep.
Just slide right out. Like this article is going to slide right off
rice
the
pudding.
Plate. Yeah, just rice pudding off of like a hot skillet. right gone.
I like rice pudding.
And yeah, me too.
With some
really
cinnamon.
Like yeah,
maybe some honey.
Although I do find the usual rice pudding recipes to be too sweet.
See, I like a really.
I like a more savory, not savory, but not very sweet rice pudding.
Right. Just a little sweet.
Okay, but aside from the rice pudding thoughts, people don't grasp onto this stuff because it's antithetical to the way that they've structured reality.
Yep.
And this is the real gender dichotomy.
Yep.
This is what we really are playing out, is the idea that men are the alpha and omega of everything that exists, and women are mere responses to that.
Yep.
And there's on a more existential level, there's really bad things for men. There's also really bad things for women, because if you tell women that they are simply a reaction to other people's actions, and to reduce themselves down to a reaction to other people's actions, you induce a learned helplessness in them. That's pathetic to watch, to be honest. And so you got these two things, and people are seeped in this, and they do not know how to see beyond it. It's like a veil over, or they're stuck in the cave looking at the shadows, and they can't see through it.
Yeah.
It's too painful.
Yep.
So you'll say this obvious fact is obvious, and they'll be right. You're right. This obvious fact is obvious, and the next moment they're like, "But why does the world oppress women more?" Like, oh, damn.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you not contain this thought and digest it at all?
No, we're gonna throw this right out.
It is so deep. This need for this particular gender role and gender dichotomy, which is what makes all the gender fluid and all of the non-binary people hilarious, because they still live it out. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you're still in a dichotomy. I can see it plain as day. The need to play out this subconscious compulsion towards these two, seeing men and women in these ways, or men and not men in these ways, is so. It is so deep that it takes a lot to get through that, to break through that. It takes a lot. And this is what we're seeing. So what they do is, when they see something that's facing men, they have to make up something to make sense, or to essentially make people realize they don't have to care about it, right? They have to reorientate the issue back to men's agency. So when you see a man who is 100% a victim of something, like I recently showed a feminist, he was talking about how women were victims of the past, and I showed him a man who was dead, and he was being eaten by maggots in a trench from World War I. Mm-hmm. He had part of his face blown up. He obviously died in the most horrific circumstances. They lived through literal hell. Mm-hmm. And I said, like this, this is the privilege. And he's like, yep, men sure are victims of their own constructs.
Yeah. What?
I'm like, what? But that's the thing. He is incapable of questioning the role that he has been assigned as a man to any degree. So when he sees male victimhood that is unmistakable, it's like unavoidable, it's factual, it's right in your face, he has to go towards some kind of extenuated logical chain to blame the man for it. He must be the actor in his own life. It's the only way. And he does it by appealing to, well, men send men to war. No, society send men to war, not men.
Yeah.
If women don't want men to go to war, they don't go to war. Okay? It doesn't happen. So anyway, it's like he can't see beyond that. He can't exist outside of that dichotomy, that binary. And feminism is just another expression of that binary. Mm-hmm. It's another way that people see male victimhood, and through a series of illogical loops somehow pop onto, oh yeah, men are doing it to themselves, therefore they have the agency, therefore I don't have. Like, this whole Borgification of men is just that. It's just a way for the average person to look at a man being eaten by maggots in a trench, or to look at men being forced to fight in the Ukraine without like, they don't have a choice. They're shot by their own side or something. I don't know. Whatever it is that they're doing to make them fight there, they're being forced. They can look at that.
Yeah.
And they can do their little loops of logic and arrive back on, but they're doing it to themselves. I don't have to care, even though it doesn't make any fucking sense to say the man in the trench has any power. So any understanding of the situation of men has to accommodate not just the generals sending men into the trench, but also the men in the trench dying. And if it doesn't accommodate the men in the trench dying, who are absolutely a victim of the situation, and look at that and understand it and understand the whole picture, it is bullshit. Yep. Okay? And you have to understand that that man was a victim of something. In fact, I would say the general is also a victim of that thing. I think it was the Somme where they had all of this learning from previous initiatives, and then they fucking forgot it all and sent a whole bunch of men into freaking machine guns to die. And the general saw that, and they were like, oh shit, well, that was a huge mistake. They didn't just walk off and have tea, they killed themselves. Mm-hmm. War, prosecuted by the aristocracy, who do you think was fighting? The aristocracy, the men. Even generals in World War I were just as likely to get killed and injured as privates. Like, the men who are sending men to die are also dying. So you can't just say, well, it's men doing it. No, it is society doing it. It's all the women back home and said, well, did you do your manly duty, sonny boy? Well, you didn't. Well, here's your white feather. Go do it, sonny boy, or mommy won't be happy. It's all the women saying that makes war happen. And it's all the men listening to their wives saying, well, we need to make a good showing of it, that make war happen. Women are 100%, or at least 50% responsible for war, and they have been since the dawn of fucking time. So don't give me this shit that men who go to war put there by the women who do not give a fuck, who will do things like probation or prohibition, or get themselves the vote without the draft, but somehow cannot conceive of maybe using that collective power that we see all throughout history to prevent a war. That is what is sending men, that entire construct, and men are not responsible for it. Or they're not solely responsible for it.
Yeah.
All right, I got a bit pissed.
All right, no, that's
Hopefully
okay.
I didn't blow out
You have a tendency to rile yourself up. So that's okay.
This really aggravates me.
Yeah.
This entire fucking framework aggravates me.
Yeah.
Like this constant need to look at men and just be like, oh, well, how is he to blame for what happened to him? Mm-hmm. Nothing. He's not to blame at all. And in fact, there are after World War I, you'll notice that Tolkien, I think I don't know if he was
in World War I. He was in the
Somme. He was in World War I. But I think he was in a class which was a little bit higher class. His entire generation was almost wiped out.
Yep.
Like, there are entire generations, aristocratic boys, who don't exist because of World War I. They're gone. And you can look at that, and women, I cannot fucking stand a woman who says, oh, well, women were no, you weren't. You had a different role. But your role wasn't when society got a bee in its bonnet about geopolitical issues that it couldn't deal with its politicians and its diplomacy. It got to just, okay, well, let's just go kill a bunch of men. That'll solve the issue.
Yep.
Okay? And it's like, when you didn't have to do that. Okay? And you didn't have to sacrifice yourself, for the most part, for all of the infrastructure that led to World War I, because World War I didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened as a result of improvements in infrastructure and logistics that themselves happened because of male expendability. You guys, if you think that World War I was bad, there are other things that men had to go through that were terrible. But if they hadn't, we wouldn't have had certain things. Like building a tunnel under the Thames. Go watch a documentary on that sometimes. Like, men would die suffocating in mud to build that fucking thing. And this is true about all of the infrastructure, all the old infrastructure about in around the world, the industrial infrastructure. Men died for it. And women have the fucking nerve to enjoy the fruits of all of that death, that expendability of men, and then turn around and say they were the ones who were oppressed. And the funny thing is that the big beneficiaries of all of that infrastructure, all of the interior plumbing, all of the comfortable travel, rail, more comfortable carriages, and then freaking automobiles where you don't actually have to have a certain amount of strength, because it takes a certain amount of strength to control a team of horses. Automobiles, power steering, interior plumbing, natural gas, bringing in lighting, so you don't have to, heating, so women don't actually, because it used to be that they did have to gather firewood. They did have to get the water. They did have to make the candles. So they had all of this infrastructure paid for by men's expendability, reducing their load to a minimum.
Yep.
And all they could do was talk about what the next thing that men owed them. And all of that was bought through men's lives. You want to look at all the statistics on whaling boats, on all of the shit that men had to do to get oil, all the dangerous jobs, which were 20, 30 times more dangerous during the Industrial Revolution, all to make the home more comfortable. Okay? And it'll eventually make workplaces more comfortable, so women wanted to come in them and start talking about, oh, you excluded us before. Oh, I can't believe your oppression. Like, and it's not just, the thing is that people will listen to me and they'll say, oh, you didn't want, I don't care. Maybe there was a need for women to move into to get the vote, to have a say in society, to move into the work sphere because they basically lost their job. I can appreciate that. You lost your meaning, you want to find new meaning. You want to be helpful. That's good. That's a good initiative. Why did this have to come with this framework of oppression? Like, even if society just sat there and said, we want women to have a say in the government because they have a valuable perspective, why did it have to come with this narrative of oppression? Okay? Why couldn't we have been just like, that's just something that needs to happen because women have always had a say in society. Sorry, guys, there was never a patriarchy. They've always had a significant say in society, even in societies where we look at and we say they're patriarchal, like Rome, which I don't know what you're comparing Rome to. But they've always had a say. So maybe society could say, yeah, they should have a say. But why does it have to be in the context of this bullshit about oppression? If society wants to provide and protect for women, why can't we be honest about that? This is what really galls me. Why do we have to lie to ourselves constantly and tell ourselves bullshit? In the minute, people will be like, yeah, women are oppressed. So, you think that people prefer to, if they were able to give a starving woman food, they would prefer to give it to a starving man? Oh, no, yeah. Well, do you think people would prefer to hit a woman versus a man? Oh, no, yeah. Do you think people would prefer to have a train run over a woman versus a man? I guess you got a point. Then where the hell does the disregard from women come from? Okay,
Good
I'm
question. All right.
Wow, that was a long rant. I apologize.
That's okay. There's only one paragraph left in this anyway, so yeah, I just just to make the point that because this guy is saying now that young men are looking up to Andrew Tate, we should probably pay attention, as though Andrew Tate's going to create the mass shooters, right? That we're all afraid of, because deep down these people still don't have a lot of sympathy for men or boys, because they're afraid of what boys can become in their own minds. And again, when they were going to Jordan Peterson, how did he get treated, even though he's completely different? So yeah, there might be a Genghis Khan type coming after Andrew Tate. Who knows? And you won't have anybody to blame but yourself. So you should have probably been there. All
When
right.
I said how long ago that feminists reduced the only way that young men can differentiate themselves, can express that desire to differentiate themselves from women, which isn't contempt for women, it's just a desire to have their own value proposition. Feminists have restricted that to simply toxic traits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means that men are eventually, if they want to differentiate themselves, they're going to have to embrace toxic traits. But where do you think Andrew Tate came from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
From you,
exactly.
feminists. From you. And it's going to
Exactly.
get worse as you get more power. But of course,
Yep.
what I've noticed is that the more power feminism gets and the worse it gets, the more power supposedly feminists need.
Yep.
Oh, God.
All right. Last paragraph. The only way through is to understand the root causes of poor behavior, poor mental health, and the impact of bullying and violence on boys. Oh, well, I'm bracing myself for the cringe now. For too long, we have failed to intervene early, then responded to any transgressions with expulsions and suspensions. My fear is that without a systemic response, the attainment gap will widen, more young men will be left behind, and we will move further away from being an inclusive society. What? I mean, not including men is already not inclusive. I don't know if you know, but men are like half the population.
Yeah, the penis people are also people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that. See, this is the thing. Okay, I guess my main issue with this is he seems to think we have to do something through the system. We have to help boys systemically, and I just don't think that's the best way. And I think that's putting the cart before the horse. I think it starts at home, and I think there needs to be like a serious conversation about the way that boys are raised and who is raising them and what they're getting like at their earliest, in the earliest points in life, and the damage that is often done at these before school, okay, before education even comes into it. Those things will impact that child well after that. So like, I get that maybe he's just saying, well, this is all I can do, but that's not gonna be much if you're not looking at the root of the problem, like where it's coming from. And I think that a lot of it is parenting, broken families, like those are like the main things. And they don't just affect boys, obviously, they affect girls too. It's just in different ways. So instead of like saying we got to fix this before the boys destroy everything because I'm scared of men at the end of the day, I think that we should probably be, looking at what puts them in that position to begin with.
Yeah, and when I say Genghis Khan, I'm like the Neo Genghis Khan. It's mostly like I don't think that's going to happen for a while. At that point, it's going to be a confluence of factors, and also I'm comparing Andrew Tate to that. Now, again, Andrew Tate has exploitative practices towards boys and men. However, he is not yet Neo Genghis Khan. So yeah. I think we should take note when it's Neo Genghis Khan time.
Well,
but at that point,
sorry, just keep things in perspective, and like I said, remember that even if you don't like Andrew Tate or if you think that he is bad for boys, remember that they did the same thing to Jordan Peterson. So it doesn't really matter, like how gentle you are, how intellectual you are. It doesn't matter.
Hell,
That's
they did the same thing to Warren Farrell.
Yeah, and Warren Farrell, who is probably like the most gentle person I've ever met, and they accuse him of being like an incest supporting pedophile or something ridiculous.
Yes, an incest supporting rapist.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I remember that. The girl with the nose ring yelling at the Toronto. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how kind and how gentle your approach is. The instant you support boys and men, you get the horns.
Yep, that's exactly
because our society.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter if you're Andrew Tate. It doesn't matter if you're Jordan Peterson. It doesn't matter if you're Warren Farrell. You're going to get the same treatment.
It does. It challenges our wedded Like, we are wedded to the idea that men are getting benefit from society unfairly, and that somehow, that it must be going somewhere, and we need to get it and give it to women. And if we don't have that, if we cannot operate under that assumption, then I don't know. I guess we all implode. Our brains explode like the aliens at the end of Mars Attacks. Like, if we can't conceive of the world in those terms, then all of us, we're just going to explode. We're just gonna get killed by the existential horror or something. But yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter. As long as you help boys, that's what they really don't want. And the fact is that because they won't deal with Warren Farrell, because they won't deal honestly with Warren Farrell or not Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson, because they won't deal honestly with these types, these men who have a reasonable message, you just push it further and further to the extremes. And this is society itself doing it. You're pushing it further and further to the extremes. And Andrew Tate, like when I talk about Neo Genghis Khan, Andrew Tate is not the worst, but you're doing it.
No, not by a long shot.
You are creating this. Like, the feminism is creating this. Academia is creating it. Government is creating it. Rolling Stone is creating the pressure that's pushing this further and further away from what is acceptable socially in every other context. Like, I don't think there's anything unacceptable about Warren Farrell. I don't really think there's anything unacceptable about Jordan Peterson, although I haven't heard his recent stuff that he's been saying. So I can't, but like I said, the more you push away recognition of boys and the humanity of boys and men, the more socially unacceptable people who care about boys and men become. Yeah. Not just because you're making them so, but because they become so.
Yep. So I got a Rumble rant donation.
Oh, cool.
I want to read before I forget, because that sometimes happens. NobaFan21 gives us $1 and says, "Can you help me disprove this myth, the idea that men who worked outside the home were misogynist or patriarchal? I feel they always leave out the fact that women often play the victim." Well, is working patriarchal? Wherever you are? Like, like I mean, if you have that written down correctly,
here's a disproval.
It doesn't make sense. You're basically saying you get to go to a job. Yeah, but it's a job still.
Men were compelled to work.
Yeah.
All right? Like, if you were during the age of coverture and you were a guy and you had a wife, and I think some of this may have existed even up to like the 60s and 70s, you are obligated to your wife's debt.
Absolutely.
And one of the reasons why I know this is there was a woman who was a writer, and she found out that her earnings went to her husband, and she was so furious about that she went out and she spent him into debtor's prison.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, you are obligated to whatever your wife can spend, even if that amount is over what you earn. Okay, that was the exchange. You can't tell me that in a situation where one person is obligated to the debts of another, the person who gets their debts paid is not privileged in some way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, really, if you think about it, that in that scenario, who had the power? Really?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Was it the man who got control over her income, or was it her who could spend as much as she wanted and he had to cover it legally? And if he was incapable, to the gulag he goes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is what they erase. And the fact is, and I recently got into the argument with the same feminist who said that a man in a trance is a victim of his own construct. He kept going on, well, when did women were able to have credit cards in their name? Well, when were men no longer legally obligated to women's debt? Because I can tell you one thing, If I am going to be obligated to another person's debt, I want to be able to sign off on their fucking card.
Yep.
And maybe prevent them from opening lines of debt that I will then have to pay.
Yep.
Like, think about it. And he had no answer to that. He just dropped it. He just dropped the whole argument because you have no answer to that.
Let's talk about something else, said the journalist to Elon Musk. I just want to...
Okay.
I just want to say, though, that, remember, guys, B. Ashraf Hakimi, the footballer that whose wife tried to take half of his tens of millions of dollars. And when she tried to do that, she learned that he had essentially put it all under his mother's name so that she couldn't. And instead of taking half of his shit, he's taking half of hers in the divorce, which is $1.5 million. That's just that's like the sprinkles on the ice cream sundae.
Yeah, but he had to do that by giving it to his mother.
Yeah, he put it under his mother's name. So when she went to take his shit, it basically was discovered that he had no assets.
But the thing is that
that's what men need to do, because that guy is an absolute king, and I'm never going to stop talking about it.
Well, as long as they have a trustworthy female relative, right? But what I was going to say is this guy says men working outside the home is oppression. So that role of men working to support women is oppression of women, is it? Well, how come upon divorce, women demand men continue to do it? Like, if it's oppression of women, why would they demand that men keep providing it?
Yeah. Well, and also, I would just ask, okay, if you're debating someone, ask them how working is oppression for the person who's not working. Because I need to square that circle, because it literally makes no sense. It doesn't matter if you're going to a coal mine, or you're going to an office building, or you're going to, bus tables in a restaurant, you're working. So, that's that you can't, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. So that needs to be explained. Anyway, I got a super chat from Zeranx for $5. And Zeranx says maybe that's the goal. When that manifestation of fears is finally created, all that venomists, that's a clever way of saying feminists, clamored about becomes the ideology's reason for being. So yeah, it's like what I've said. I used to say a long time ago that feminism creates the problem with their policies, with their, the things they lobby for, and the laws they get changed, and things that happen on college campuses. And they claim that it's like it's their response to a really serious problem. Usually that's men. And then when that thing that they're trying to fix creates problems, then they will offer the placebo because it's not the solution, and they'll continue to blame men.
Well, they'll just offer more of the same problem. It's like, oh, you have a problem, here's more of it. Oh, yeah, thank you,
here's more of that problem.
Here's more of that problem. Oh, thank you. And it works because we're idiots.
Yeah.
But just the idea that men who work outside the home to provide for women are oppressing those women, and yet when the women divorce them, what do? They demand they continue it. I don't think so. And also legally, a wife could expect support from her husband up to the 70s. So a man was legally obligated to work to support his wife. Now that only happens in divorce. But a wife was never legally obligated to do a damn thing for her husband. Like, a husband couldn't go to court and say, Your Honor, the roast is salty and burnt, and the children are filthy. Please force her to actually be a housewife. And that didn't happen. There was no legal recourse if your wife was not doing her job. So don't give me that shit. This is a completely asymmetrical situation. Men are obligated legally to do their half of the work. Women are not obligated at all legally.
Yep, absolutely.
And then again, and those legal obligations, women are so oppressed by men working outside the home, but divorce happens and he still has to do it.
Yep.
Bullshit.
It's true.
Okay.
All right. So that's all the super chats and super chows and rumble rants. Uh,
I feel like
and the article's done.
Yeah, the article's done.
Yeah, we can wrap it up if you want. We've gone for about an hour and a half and some change.
We started late, but I see that there's a whole bunch of comments, but I cannot access them.
Comments?
Yeah.
On the original article?
Yeah, on the original article.
Oh, okay, so I couldn't open them because I'm looking at archive link, because if I try to put the regular link in, then it puts a big freaking gigantic window saying, "Don't you want to be a subscriber?" No, I can't look at the comments. So
let me see if I can. Let me see if
maybe you can read them.
Let me just do some internet stuff.
You don't have to share a screen with me or anything like that.
No. I have to actually see if I can access them through this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just doing stuff. Oh,
all right, do stuff. Hack away.
No, I think that I can't.
Oh, okay.
Damn it.
The Telegraph is impervious to hacking, apparently.
Yeah, no,
they got super hacker working around the clock. Is that the guy? The Hacker Man? It's Hacker Man.
Hacker Man.
Yeah.
Let me try that.
Yeah, they got Hacker Man on the job. We're not getting through. We're not getting through those firewalls.
Well, okay, so I have tried, but it looks like it just... Yeah, I can't get these.
Well, I'm sorry. I can't open the comments, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. It's so devastating. That's the only reason to actually see.
Why don't you can you look at them?
I got them. I don't know how I did it.
Oh, okay.
Oh shit! It just did the free trial thing. It gave me a brief glimpse of the comments, and then try Telegraph free for 1 month.
They're getting savvy on that. I mean, I'm glad we still have archive links, but
yeah,
because like most of the stuff that we respond to, we wouldn't be able to.
Unfortunately, we cannot access the comments. So,
all right, sad face. That's okay. Mm-hmm. Did you get an idea of what the general impression was?
I could try looking at it again.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, if anything jumped out at you, because I'm expecting that this guy's response will be seen as fair and measured instead of like, yeah, but it's ceding too much ground, like way too much ground. And I think that's the problem. That's why you're gonna keep losing, because you're gonna keep on trying to like pay women lip service, pay feminism lip service, pay something lip service, and that means that they got you. You're not going to be able to like get out from under that. Well, and too many people do that.
I'm not really sure if this is beneficial. Guinevere Ning says that's what the Russians and Chinese wanted, so we're easier to overpower. Effeminate walkery.
Kind of missing the point.
COVID
but okay.
And TikTok. The 3 creepy Trojan horsemen of the apocalypse. No feminism.
That's a bit much.
The fourth one as yet undefined.
It's like all of these celestial beings and demons and like, you know, the living embodiment of war, pestilence, death, and famine, but no feminists. Like everything else. Else. Moloch, you know, like search her. Mephistopheles, we'll throw all that in there.
Nebrew.
Yeah, yeah, but
Nebrew is responsible. Planet X is responsible for the boy crisis.
No, Nalarthotep, you know, Shub-Niggurath, like everything else, but not academic feminism.
We have not nearly from the depths of who could possibly be responsible for the boy crisis. Oh god, I believe climate change is being misused. What? To further turn the screws, as per what Khan is doing in London in the same sort. Okay, this is.
Yeah, I think you guys have like you've overshot. You're going too deep. You can recognize this is happening a little bit closer to home.
Yeah.
Then the 666 layer of the abyss. It's
okay. Feminists go into school and teach boys to hate themselves.
Yeah.
Why did Planet X do this?
Why did the deep ones have to come into our schools? Anyway, well, that was funny.
Oh my god. Yeah, it was. Okay. That actually is
Papa Nurgle.
that's an example. That's an example of exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So feminists go into schools and they teach boys to hate themselves. They teach them all about toxic masculinity without being able to identify any kind of positive masculinity. Although the feminists that I've been arguing with on Twitter said that men appreciate good craftsmanship as a positive. I think that's more of a neutral.
Yeah.
But he says that's positive masculinity, is appreciating good craftsmanship. So I got an answer finally from a man, from a feminist. Although
I'm still laughing.
I did not. I guess women don't appreciate good craftsmanship or something. That's not where I would have went with positive masculinity, but whatever. So there are no positive traits, only negative ones. Then feminists go into school and teach that, and this person's like, yeah, but why is TikTok? Like why is why is like I said, why is Nibiru doing this? Why is what were you talking to the old ones, the elder gods? Why are they doing this?
Why is Cthulhu doing this? That's what we should just do that from now on. We should just blame demons and old ones and shit like that.
People?
Maybe people will listen. Maybe then we can get them to come talk to us, and then we'll spring the surprise, and it's actually just.
It was
feminist
academics. It was feminist academics all along. But it's like what I know. Some people think that the remnants of the USSR are responsible for this, and they particularly like to go to a interview. Do you really think that they had that much power? No, it's women doing it.
Yeah,
it's feminist academics doing it. And it doesn't even matter if the feminist academics were influenced by Zelensky. I think not Zelensky's. That guy's name? The guy who revealed all of the tactics of undermining society. Even if they're influenced by that, they're still the ones doing it.
Yeah, they're still the ones that do it. You're talking about the guy that was interviewed in the 80s?
Yes. But here's the other thing. Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. This is appealing to a much older beliefs about men and women, that men are the ones who they're the alpha and omega, and women respond to them. So this is an expression of an older gender dichotomy. It's a manipulation of it. It's turning it far more toxic. But that's where it's coming from. That's what gives it its power.
Mm-hmm.
There is why do you think thoughts become contagious or beliefs become contagious?
Mm-hmm.
Because they appeal to something in us. So even if Bezmenov is 100% and I don't know, the USSR had a splinter group that started all this, the only reason why it grew is because it appeals to people for some reason. And it appeals to people because it is a comfortable explanation why we don't have a give a fuck about how much men are harmed by our society and what our society does.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. Okay.
All right.
Back to you, Brian.
Well, I mean, do you want to do your closing thingies and then I'll do my closing thingy, or?
I think it was my closing thingy.
Oh, that was your closing thingy? Okay, cool.
Closed. Yeah.
All right. Well, then I'm just doing one more quick scan to see if I didn't miss any super thingies. Elite chats, whatever we want to call it. Elite chats. I don't know why nobody thought to do that. We should call it Elite Chat with a 733T or whatever it is. Anyway, if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you think about the article, Were we unfair to this guy? Do you think that overall this is a good thing that's being spoken about? What would you suggest that he do? If you have access, I put the archive link, but you can't look at the chat there, or the comments rather. But maybe you do have access to the Telegraph on your end. I know they usually give you like the ability to look at the website a certain number of times before they start asking you for money. So maybe you can, go in there and tell us if there's any interesting comments. Anyway, and most importantly, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.